Now, Roblox has many popular games on its website racking in hundreds of thousands of players daily, such as Blox Fruits and Brookhaven, as those are a couple of the most popular games today. But unfortunately, Roblox games don't last forever. Sure, some may last longer than others, but there always comes a point where either there is just a lack of updates, or perhaps the game just gets boring in general. And Pet Simulator X seems to be falling into this conclusion as well. Now first, before we talk about the game itself, let's talk about the developer of Pet Simulator X, Preston. Preston is a 22-year-old Roblox developer from Texas, who is one of the richest people on all of Roblox. He is beloved by many, and some might even say that he is the best developer on Roblox. Preston would first begin playing Roblox back in September 2nd, 2011. Around this time, he was super young and was only around 10 years old at that time. His first game revolved around sword RPG games, as that was his passion back on his first days of building games. One indication of this is how his first name on Roblox he would go by was Silver Sword Gold 2. Now, Preston has made a good amount of games in his career, but one of, if not his first big project, was called Limited Tycoon back in 2012. Now, what's crazy is that Preston was only 11 years old at that time. When I was 11, I was still eating rocks in my backyard, but that's besides the point. It's pretty easy to say that Preston had a lot of talent at such a young age. Now, over time, these games weren't getting him much anywhere, at least not yet, because on around October 2014, Preston would make two games that would be pretty successful, Giant Survival 1 and Giant Survival 2, with the first one garnering over 50 million visits, and the second one getting over 10 million. But unfortunately, both of these games are unplayable today as they are closed. Now, ever since those games have been made, Preston hasn't done much since then. That was until April 4th when he would create one of his biggest games yet, accumulating over 1.1 billion visits that is also a two-time 2018 award winner, known as Pet Simulator. Now, as you can tell by this gameplay, it's actually pretty decent for its time. But since the gameplay itself isn't up to date with the quality seen in newer Roblox games today, the game is kind of dead as it only has a couple hundred players playing it on average. But the main concept of this game is basically a simulator, as you would use your pets to get coins and use your coins to get better pets. That's mainly the whole basis of this game, to put it into short terms. Although it seems basic on paper, it's actually a pretty enjoyable game nonetheless, at least in my opinion. Another big game Preston would make is a sequel to Pet Simulator, Pet Simulator 2. Released on February 4th of 2019. The basis of this game is basically the same as Pet Simulator 1 but with some more detail, and it just looks cooler in general. And this game would gain over 100 million visits overall. But unfortunately, as of today, the game is discontinued, meaning that there will be no future updates. Preston will make a few games that would amass tens of millions if not hundreds of millions of visits, such as titles like Build and Survive or Big Paintball, which are both games I'm sure you've heard of before if you are a longtime player of Roblox or a fan of Preston and his work. One big game of his is known as My Restaurant, which is basically a restaurant simulator. I don't mean to brag, but I'm kinda stacked in this game, not gonna lie. Yeah, I know that was cringe, please don't judge me. Now, My Restaurant is currently sitting at a whopping 722 million visits, and the game still has a substantial player count on average, and it's worth noting that the game has been out for a while, as it's been released ever since December 5th of 2019. It's safe to say that 2019 was one of, if not Preston's biggest year. But that would change as on January 22nd of 2021, Preston would release the game that we all know and love, known as Pet Simulator X. This game is a very high quality simulator, while its assets and design were made in such a way that people would be more interested. Now sure, this game is kind of like the same concept as the Pet Simulator 1 for an example, but what makes this game a bit different is not only the detail, but there is a lot more features to it as well. This is Preston's biggest game of all time, with it gaining over 8.3 billion visits, with the game being so big that sometimes so many people will be playing it at once that the game would literally crash Roblox. Yeah, it was that popular. The game was doing really well for a very long time. Everyone was enjoying it, and a lot of Roblox's biggest YouTubers would do gameplay videos on Pet Simulator X. But over time, just like any other Roblox game, the game would begin to lose player count. I'm aware that the game is still racking in tens of thousands of players on average, but just to think that it used to be hundreds of thousands of players playing the game at once. That's a pretty big percentage of what the game used to have. I myself have even stopped playing Pet Simulator X overall. So now you may ask, what went wrong? Now the answer will vary from person to person, but I'll be talking about the majority of the opinionated reasons. One big reason is known as pay to win. In the game itself, in most updates there will be this limited time egg game pass where you could buy eggs that will give you pets. But the thing is that these eggs will cost a lot of Robux. And the worst part is that this is a gamble. Let me explain. So in this egg you would have a very small chance of getting what's known as the Titanic pet, which is the rarest type of pet you could have. You could also get what's known as the huge pet, which also has a low chance of it being hatched. Now, I have watched dozens of people spending hundreds of dollars on these eggs, and it would take a pretty good amount of tries just to get one huge pet alone. This could be considered gambling, which is literally what these Game Pass suggests, as it takes one quick Google search to figure this out. But things got worse for this issue as on November 9th of 2021, NFTs were introduced into the game. Now this was actually a pretty bad thing. These NFTs, aka non-fungible tokens, costed a lot of money that not even Roblox could buy. Pet Simulator X and its fan base doesn't consist of only businessmen who are into NFTs and are willing to spend who knows how much money, but instead the majority of the people who even play this game are little kids. This pay to win factor became worse over time. What's crazy is how Pet Simulator X would literally break Roblox's terms of service countless times as well. One thing Preston would do is release plushies for the game in which if you own them, well, you can get really good pets within the game. But as you might have expected, these pets did cost a good amount of money. Now this pay to win factor across Pet Simulator X is already a bad thing in itself. But just imagine having to spend your life earnings for these pets, just for them to disappear out of plain sight. Yes, this actually happened to a few players. At one point in the game, there was an exploit where if a hacker even just sees you in game, your pets will be gone in an instant. No further explanation, that's literally all it will take. Now I'm aware that Preston isn't exactly at fault for this, but on April 15th of this year, Preston would make a snarky tweet directed towards free-to-play players that states, "How come free-to-play players are the most entitled?" Now ever since that tweet, Preston's reputation was decided. Now, he is one of the most hated Roblox developers of all time. And this wasn't the end of it, as over time, the player count of Pet Simulator X will begin to drop more and more for the reasons I've stated earlier. And as of recent times, there began to be a lack of updates within the game, but Preston has said on Twitter that this was because he is making yet another Pet Simulator game, which will be the 4th game of this saga. So we will have to see how this game would turn out. Maybe this new game will be less pay to win, who knows. But overall, Pet Simulator is dying nonetheless, as it has been dropping player counts and has been becoming more irrelevant in general. All of that is because the reasons I've explained in this video. But for now, it looks like Pet Simulator X will be getting discontinued when Preston makes his new game, which is kind of sad to see because I genuinely used to enjoy this game.